Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We apologize for the technical difficulties. It seems that Google Plus has updated the entire Google Plus platform tonight about 2 minutes before we were going to begin. So we greatly apologize for any inconvenience. We thank all of you for staying with us and for hanging on as we get started for this. I promise you are going to be in for a treat. Tonight we have an unbelievable speaker with us, Dawn Jackson-Blatner. For those of you that were with us at convention, you know firsthand the presentation that she gave. Everybody loved it, and we wanted to have her back here tonight in order to share this with folks who weren't able to join us at convention. If you'd like to submit a question during the webinar tonight, you can do so on the Google event page, and you can also submit a question by emailing it to info@obesityaction.org. Please also keep in mind that all the webinars we've done throughout the month of October are available on the OAC's YouTube page. So our moderator for tonight is Pam Davis. Pam has been the chair of the Obesity Action Coalition for the past few years now. She had led the charge for the OAC, very passionate regarding weight bias, among many other topics. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Pam now to introduce Dawn. Pam, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, James, and thank you for everybody that has logged in tonight to hear the last in our series for the month of October. I'm very excited to introduce you to Dawn Jackson-Blatner. Dawn is the registered dietitian, nutritionist for the Chicago Cubs. Very impressive. She is also a blogger for the Huffington Post. Equally impressive. Some folks would say more so. And she's on the advisory board for Fitness Magazine. She is the author of The Flexitarian Diet, which was recently ranked a top plant-based diet by U.S. News and World Report. Dawn's also received Lifetime Television's Remarkable Woman Award for her work in the field of nutrition. And her motto is treat yourself well, eat right, feel awesome. And please welcome Dawn Blatner.
Hey, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for the wait, because we are going to be talking about planning, shopping, and eating smart. And I'm very excited to present this material to you. So, without further ado, the first situation when it comes to how you think about planning, shopping, and eating is generally, when I tell people I'm going to talk about this, like a bummer to them. They feel like, oh gosh, we gotta plan, we gotta shop, like, oh, bummer. And I recently saw a video, it's an older video from like 2011, but it was from the show Parks and Recreation, and you can see the slide where it's just, let me give you the setup of this video, okay? So they go, it's treat yourself time, basically. And then they say, treat yourself to clothes, treat yourself to fragrances, treat yourself to massage, mimosas, fine leather goods, treat yourself. And it's all really how we think about treating ourselves is about all these decadence, right? It's like the desserts, it's like the fancy clothes. But I want the entire presentation today to really revolve around the idea of treating yourself is about treating yourself well. Planning is actually treating yourself. Treat yourself. And shopping is about treat yourself. And eating right is about treat yourself. And so trying to flip this paradigm of it being a drag to something so powerful, so wonderful, and really the biggest gesture that you really matter is planning, shopping, and eating smart. And so I think that's really setting me up now for the rest of this presentation, is you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not coming from like, you know, boring, this is a drag. I'm coming from, hey, if you matter, you do. The biggest gesture is let's talk about how to plan, shop, and eat smart. So let's go on to thinking every single time that I'm trying to brainwash you, you're going to see this slide that says treat yourself. So treat yourself. The first situation is we're going to plan, okay? And planning, oh, here's it again, treat yourself. Planning is really something that is the first step to eating well. And so when you think about a situation in your life that you did an awesome job at, so you know, whether that's a personal thing like you know, you threw an awesome party for your family, or whether that is you did a really great job in a presentation at work or a report at work, think about what were the elements that made you do such a great job. Well, it's that you were absolutely prepared. You thought of the special Halloween napkins. You made a clementine into a little pumpkin for decorations. You know, you had the details, you had the plan, and of course, it goes well when you plan. So when it comes to planning what you're going to eat, one of the things that I think is interesting is just how many places you can get recipes, okay? Because that's really how we plan what we're going to eat, is picking recipes. And so you could get from Pinterest to cookbooks to magazines to friends to, I mean, everywhere. Even like packages of food have recipes. So what's great is that we have all of these ideas for meals, and that's where planning begins, is getting ideas of meals, getting recipes. But here's the problem, is that choice is the enemy of weight loss. Isn't that an interesting concept? Having all of these options of recipes, from Pinterest to packages to cookbooks to friends to everywhere, it actually could make it harder for you to plan, because you become almost paralyzed with choice. So think about that again. Choice is the enemy of weight loss. So what am I saying here? Am I saying limit your choice? Yes, I am. I'm in fact giving you what I call the ultimate of planning tools. And the ultimate planning tool is called the Rule of Two. It is so simple. It is so peaceful. In fact, 2 is the peace sign, right? So it's like, it's a peaceful way to plan what you eat. And so I suggest to all my patients, I suggest to myself when I'm meal planning, is that I pick 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners, and even 2 snacks every single week. And then I just rotate throughout the week with those 2 options. What's great about this is that it is simplification, as opposed to making planning such a big ordeal. And what I love about this, and what I've seen with my clients and even myself, is that instead of having like one week where I'm like a super planner extraordinaire and I'm planning everything perfectly and I have every recipe from every cookbook that I've wanted to try for a month, and then I'm totally burned out and I don't want to plan the next week, it stops that all or nothing swing. And I'm sure you've been there, right? You've been a good planner before in your life, and you've been a horrible planner before in your life. So have I. So this Rule of Two really helps planning be consistent. And you know as well as I do, when it comes to weight and when it comes to health, consistency is what counts. So if you take anything away from how to plan, is look at all of these different arenas of all of these cool recipes, and at the end just pull back to thinking about just 2 ideas that you rotate for the week. It makes shopping simpler, and it really is one of those things for consistency. So when it comes to shopping, one of the things that I want you to remember, of course, is that this is not a drag. Shopping is a treat yourself moment. So making sure that you understand that you are doing something very good for your body gives you a better attitude, right? It gives you a better attitude going in the store rather than perhaps, I mean, you know, sometimes an attitude could be that you're like parking really fast and you're like rushing in and you're like, oh, I gotta hurry up and do this. Well, instead, sort of reframe, have this focus of, hey, you know what, this is a gesture of treating myself well. I'm going to enjoy this process, and I'm going to get things that make me feel good and good about myself. So what about shopping and you? Like, do you stack up to all the statistics of what people are doing out there shopping? Here's what I know, that the average number of trips to the grocery store each week is 2.2. So if you're going less than that, you're less than average. So you might need to go more often to stock up on those produce items that go bad. If you're going more, hey, maybe we got to do a better job of just planning and thinking about those 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and 2 snacks, so that you're not always running back to the store, running back to the store, running back to the store. How long are you spending in the grocery store? Well, the average person is spending 44 minutes every time they enter that doorway. So if you are much faster, maybe you're not reading labels enough, or if you're much slower, maybe that is going to impede you from going to the grocery store because it's becoming too much of a time suck. So trying to keep it to that 44 minutes, I think, is a good rule of thumb. And then how much are you spending at the grocery store? Well, the average person is spending $105 for the week of groceries. Other things I can tell you and tips when it comes to shopping, if you are trying to avoid a crowd, Saturday, and you know this, right? Saturdays are absolute madhouse in the grocery store. And then the second most busy are Fridays and then Sundays. So avoiding those days as one of your planning and shopping days may be a good idea if you're looking for less crowds. And then we also all know this, 4 to 5 o'clock on a weekday is the busiest time in the grocery store. So, if you're looking for a real treat yourself moment where you're having peace in the produce aisle, it's probably not at 4 to 5 o'clock on a weeknight. And then 11 to noon on the weekend is also not such a good time to go to the grocery store because it is awfully busy. And then one thing that I read that I loved in terms of statistics, 64% of the people in the grocery store are reading labels. That is good news. However, I actually do not think that everyone is looking at the same label that I am looking at, nor do they maybe have the same rules that I do, because I'll often see like a guy in the frozen section or something, looking at a, box, okay, like a frozen meal or something, and I will be like, oh, I'm sure he's not going to put that in his cart after he reads the label. I see him read the label, and then he puts it in his cart. I'm like, what is he looking at that he's putting that in the cart? Not maybe the right stuff. So what I've come up with is a 6-step label read. And why I'd like to simplify it to 6 steps is because as well as I do, there are 100 things on the label that start counteracting each other, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, well, this has high fiber and this is like low sugar, but then the sodium is like here, and then what about the calories? So it can be very confusing. So just boiling it down to 6 steps has been a dream come true for me. My husband and I, when we go grocery shopping, we call it a head-to-head. Let's do a head-to-head, where we compare 2 products head-to-head on these 6 items. So let me go through what my 6-step system is. The first most important thing is serving size. You absolutely cannot look at a food label without having your eyes on that absolutely first, since the entire label is based on serving size. Secondly, I love to look at calories because that helps me decide where that food fits in my diet, right? So is it 100 to 200 calories, so this food is like more like a snack? Or is this like a 300 to 500 calorie thing that's more like a meal? So the calories help me determine where I would plug this food in. Then I look at saturated fat and trans fat. And there's the coolest thing on the label. On the right-hand side, do you see it where I have that asterisk? That is the % daily value. And this is a totally big secret that I am busting out right now. There's something called a 5 and 20 rule that all of us dietitians use, but I don't think it boils down to everybody else. 5 and 20 rule means whenever you see a 5% on the label, that means it's low in whatever you're looking at. And whenever you see 20% on the label, that means it's high in whatever you're looking at. So when I'm looking at a label for saturated fat, I know that's bad news, that's bad fat. So I want that as low as possible. I want that closer to 5% than I want it to 20%. If it's somewhere in the middle between 5 and 20, that means it's moderate. So if I'm looking at a label and I see something has 10% saturated fat, I know it's not low, but I also know it's not high. That would be moderate. So I love that rule for a quick way to look at labels, because sometimes all of the numbers can start getting jangled in your mind and you forget what the goal is. So just remember, the 5 and 20 rule is really going to bail you out most of the time. The number 4 on the label, I love to look at sodium. Again, you can use the 5 and 20 rule with sodium. 5% means it's low sodium. 20% means it's high sodium. Or you could use milligrams. Some people like to know that it's 500 milligrams or less per serving. And then number 5, I look at fiber. If you see something that's 3 to 5 grams, that means it's a good source of fiber. If you see something that's 5 grams or more, that means it's excellent source of fiber. Like beans, for example, if you look down a can of beans, those would be an excellent source of fiber. They're one of the highest sources of fiber out there, more than apples or bananas or spinach. And then the final thing that I look at, and I got to tell you, if you go through 1 through 5 on that thing, you look at the serving size, you look at the calories, you look at the saturated fat, you look at the sodium, you look at the fiber, I'll tell you, some junk food looks pretty decent just looking at those 5 things. So this 6th element is really, I think, the big push in the face of like, should you buy this or not? And that's looking at the ingredient list, right? Are these things that are real foods? Are they things that you can pronounce? Are they things that you would have in your kitchen? Or is it a number, such as like, number 6 red dye or something like that? So, I really like this quick and down and dirty 6-step system every time you're looking at a food label, and remembering that 5 and 20 rule. And very soon you can quickly see the difference between one cereal to a next, one loaf of bread to the next, one yogurt to the next. So it's a great system. If you aren't currently using that 6-step system, I say give it a try. So when you're shopping, it's great that you're paying attention to labels, but I'll tell you this. If there's one thing that I could recommend when it comes to shopping smart, it's knowing a truth. And the truth is, hungry people make bad decisions. You have done it. I know you have. I have done it. I know I have. So the idea of this giving yourself a snack before you go into the grocery store, it's not hocus pocus. In fact, research does show that when people have a healthy snack and they're not hungry going to the grocery store, they do make healthier decisions. So this is not just an old wives' tale. This is, in fact, been proven in research that give yourself a snack before you go. One of the snacks that I like and find very portable is I love apple and almonds. I think that combination of produce and protein is really dynamic. I like, pear and string cheese or something like celery and peanut butter. Anything before you go out the door and you enter your grocery store is a very smart idea. But the apple and almonds I like because I can keep that in my purse really at all times as my emergency sort of Scooby snack. So when it comes to having the snack before you go, that's smart. But this is the coolest research. When I was doing research for this presentation, and I was thinking about, all right, I want to tell these people all about my 2 rule for planning, and I know I should talk about how to read a label in the grocery store. But I did not expect this. This is research that prime yourself with healthy inspiration before you go to the grocery store, and you will buy healthier food. So what this means is, it is looking at healthy magazines, looking at healthy recipes, giving yourself like a healthy pep talk, like, hey, I'm a healthy person and I love myself, or anything that you can do to remind yourself, even shopping in exercise clothes, anything that you can do to set the healthy intention, to set the healthy mood, to prime yourself with healthy intentions before you go. Research shows that you will do a better job at the grocery store. So really for mine, I think it is like the healthy recipes, like getting into the groove of like putting kale in smoothies and putting pumpkin in my oatmeal and like looking at all these cool healthy ideas before I go. Sometimes is like sort of my go-to of setting healthy intention, but I do like the idea of shopping in exercise clothes too. So when it comes to going into the doors, right, so we have you well fed, that you don't feel hungry, you have this healthy intention. You go through the grocery store reading your labels like a champion with the 6-point system. Fantastic, you're doing a great job, but hold up. Here is where the rubber meets the road, is that I suggest if there is one thing that you change about your grocery store experience, it is the cart check. The cart check. And what a cart check is it's basically right before you pull into that express lane or the lane number 3 or the shortest line, right before you pull in, look at your cart. Have some visual wisdom around what is in there. And what I mean by that is check to see that you have about a quarter of your cart whole grains. Is it whole wheat pasta? Is it quinoa? Is it brown rice frozen from the frozen section? Look to see that 25% of your cart are lean proteins. Do you have pouch of tuna? Do you have eggs? Do you have turkey or chicken, fish? And then look to see, do you have 50% of your cart produce, like fresh produce or frozen? The concept here is that inevitably, whether you're using a handheld cart or a push cart or whatever size, that if you can get your cart looking 50% produce, a quarter grain, and a quarter protein, you will then be able to mimic that on your plate. Right? So your plate is supposed to be 25, 25, 50. It's supposed to have a little grain, a little protein, and a lot of produce. And unless you buy that, unless your grocery cart looks like that, there's no way your plate could be balanced like that. So I'll tell you what, there's many a time that I'm like, oh shoot, I got to go back to the produce section because I really do not have this visual cart check down pat. And that's sort of the whole point, is just to make sure that if you are off, that you go run and scurry and get yourself a pack of whole grain brown rice, or you go run and scurry and get another head of broccoli or asparagus that's on sale. The concept of the cart check is powerful. Now, you've gone shopping. You've done all the tricks that I've said. Now, I'll tell you what, you're coming home, you're walking in your door, you're going into the kitchen. My golly, the power of doing a kitchen makeover, I cannot tell you the power here. I have, one of my Today Show appearances really was around this concept of your environment matters. That why not make your environment work for you instead of against you, right? Like, team up with your environment. And what I mean by that is looking at your kitchen as a way to encourage you to do the right thing, okay? And so for your kitchen makeover, when you have all this healthy food in your house, get it eye level in your fridge. That research shows there is power in proximity. So the closer you are to healthy food, the more likely you are to eat it. So that means if I want to eat more vegetables, which is true, which should be all of our goals, really, we want to eat more vegetables, keeping a veggie tray at eye level in the fridge is the smartest thing you could possibly do. So coming home with your groceries and getting yourself a little veggie tray, don't just wait for a party. You know, I mean, inevitably, people wait for parties to have a veggie tray. Make yourself an everyday veggie tray and put it eye level in the fridge. In sight, in mouth is really the thing to remember here. And I think I really came up with this idea after a party that I had where, you know, my family was over and I had leftover veggie tray. And, you know, I put it in the fridge eye level where there was space. And I couldn't believe how many times I would open the fridge and just munch on some vegetables in there. So, you know, the idea of proximity and then also the convenience factor, right? That here's what I call it. I call it RIP drawer. RIP drawer. R-I-P. Rest in peace. That crisper drawer on the bottom of the fridge is where most people keep their produce, and they keep it like wrapped up in the plastic from the grocery store, and then they shove it in the deep dark billows of your fridge. And so no wonder why every time you go in there everything is rotted. You forgot about it, and it's super inconvenient. And so the idea of don't use that RIP drawer. It is where produce goes to die. Make sure that you keep it eye level. And I tell you what, I have really and truly seen that, you know, keeping things like water bottles and condiments down there and like jellies and all sorts of things that I never really use. You know what? It clears up my fridge and it makes it look gorgeous. So there's all these colors all over, and you know, all the water bottles and condiments are in those drawers deep below. And so that brings me to the point of, don't forget to really look at that fridge and make sure it's beautiful and welcoming. Beautifying by just putting some simple clear bowls and fruit out, so when you open the fridge it looks attractive. I mean, you know, I have a stepson, and so when we would make his lunch, you know, I would do everything from like cutting a sandwich into like Mickey Mouse shapes, and I would have, you know, like I would cut cucumbers into flower shapes. I would do all these things to encourage him to eat this food, to really make it fun and beautiful. And of course he would eat it. And so all of a sudden, as adults, now we think we just slop together any old piece of broccoli or whatever and, you know, hope for the best, and of course we should eat it. No, I mean, we need to take the effort. We do really, and you know it, we do really eat with our eyes first. And so beautifying your fridge is really one step in getting yourself to eat healthier without actually having to try harder, right? So when it comes to what my homework assignment would be, after this webinar, run to your fridge. See, does it look like this? This is a picture of someone's fridge, okay? What's wrong with this picture? So first of all, just look inside. This person must just live on eggs, first of all. There's like 50,000 egg cartons, so there's not a lot of variety here. You can see that most of what we're looking at are condiments and sodas. So even if it's diet, my eye is going right to things like sour cream and condiments. So it's not attracting me with this beautification. It's not attracting me with fruit and vegetables eye level in the fridge. And so if I could be in this person's home, I would just shove all of those condiments in the rip drawer, in that crisper drawer below, and I'd bring all the beautiful stuff up. And then I might, suggest that you have enough eggs. I might say you have plenty. But, thinking about, go to your fridge after this and see how close are you to, this idea of this beautiful fridge. So I basically planned with you with these 2 recipes for the breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. We've gone to the store, prepped with our exercise clothes and our healthy attitude. We have had a snack. We're reading our labels. We're doing everything. We bring our food home. It's a beautiful fridge. Everything's working out great. And so now it's time, after we've planned and shopped, now it's time we talk about actually eating. So when it comes to eating, people, as you know, will have this sort of love-hate relationship with food, right? We know that it is something that tastes good. We know that it's something that gives us fuel for life, but yet that sometimes it's like, oh, I shouldn't be eating that, or why did I do that? So there's so much sort of emotion wrapped around eating. And I suggest this mantra of treat yourself. Like, thinking about when you are eating, it's about not only treating yourself in terms of like decadence and enjoying your food. It's about treating yourself well and giving your body things that it needs to be its super self, And so when it comes to eating, how close are you to the average person, right? The average person has 2 out of 3 of their meals are eaten at home. So that means only 1 out of their 3 are eaten away. And where are they eating it? Of course, restaurants and at work. This I don't believe. Do you believe this? 61.5 minutes the average person spends on food prep per day. I don't know about it. You know what? I think that's like overzealous. I talk to clients, they really aren't putting that much time into food prep. It would be nice, but if you can do that planning we talked about, you really have less prep to do because you already have every ingredient that you need. And so I think we could shave minutes off of that with good planning. And this should come as a shocker to you and appall you, because it did for me. $1,365 is what we waste in food every year. The average household wastes over $1,000 in food. So I will guarantee you that if you beautify and you move all of your produce from the crisper up to eye level, I will absolutely be shaving money off of that. I will be saving you money. So not only is it about beautification, you will be saving money with less food waste. Additionally, by planning and not over planning what you're going to buy, by only having these 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and 2 snack options, you will have less food waste because you're not over planning and then not getting to the food before it rots, right? So I think, if anything else from this presentation, I think those couple of things will save you some cash. So now, when it comes to what I say about eating, like what are my food philosophies, the thing that I would love you to believe and see and feel right now is that you have 2 people living inside of you. How do you feel about when I say that? That you have 2 people living inside of you. You have one person who is a major health nut. You know what? He or she is loving. She wants to wake up and eat a kale smoothie every day, and she wants to have, salads that make her feel alive and energized and youthful. And, she wants to have broccoli and stir fry and all these wonderful healthy things at dinner. Your health nut is in there and loves the stuff, loves the feeling that healthy foods give. However, You also, and you know her, she is a wild child in there. You have a wild child in there who wants to eat pizza and donuts and cakes and cookies and pies. She does. So here's the problem. Dieters, they go back and forth between these two people. One day they are like listening to Salad, Miss Salad Queen Health Nut, and another day they're crazed and their wild child is coming out, and they feel awful on the salad days because they feel deprived. And they feel awful on the wild child days because they feel overindulgent. So my suggestion is to admit that you have these two people living inside of you and please them at every plate. And what that looks like is something magical, absolutely magical, is you honor your wild child by saying, hey, wild child, what do you feel like eating? And she goes, well, I'm from Chicago, so she goes, girl, you want pizza. So half of your plate becomes pizza for appeasing wild child. The other half of your plate, you ask your health nut, what will make you feel alive, energized, well, just so good about yourself, so healthy? Well, I would say, yeah, a big salad would be nice. And so all of a sudden, I have the perfect meal. I have pizza and a salad. And I love that example because so many of us have done that, and you do step away feeling good, right? You feel like you got what you wanted, but you didn't overdo it. And so if you could do that for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner every day, and admit that these two people coexist and you please them both on every plate, at every meal, your relationship with food is no longer strained. It is no longer, yay, I'm doing so good, oh, I'm doing so bad. It is not this up and down yo-yo. It is a beautiful thing that you can feel good about all of the time. So if that's a powerful thing to you, it's changed my way of dealing with food personally. It's what I teach all of my clients. I encourage you to sort of take a step back at your plate and see, are you honoring both your wild child and your inner health nut? And then when it comes to where you eat, oh my gosh, this country is obsessed with what we eat, right? We eat salmon, we eat brown rice, we eat kale, we eat green smoothies. We are obsessed with what? We are even, in fact, pretty obsessed with how much, right? So everyone's like, it's the palm of your hand, it's a baseball, it should be, like a cup, 3 ounces. So we talk about what we eat and we talk about how much we eat, but seldom do you hear the most important thing, in my opinion, is how we eat. Where are you? Where are you? Are you in a car shoving your breakfast down? Are you standing at the fridge trying to sneak something? Are you at the couch not even paying attention to what you're eating and watching television? Yes, 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 yes. If you're answering yes, it is because it's a very normal thing that has become our culture, is that just eating on a run, anywhere, anytime, no rules. And I suggest very much so, if you could do a 7-day challenge of what I call table plate share, it will change your life. I'm serious. Table plate share is you must have those 3 things every time you eat: a table, a plate, and a chair. Can you do it for 7 days? That's 21 meals. Can you do it? And see what happens. What happens is you become more mindful. You start learning about, I'm full faster than I thought. And you start respecting food and respecting your relationship with it even more. It's a beautiful thing. Now, when it comes to getting food in your mouth, there's a rule called 15 CPMs, baby. So instead of like RPMs, like revolutions per minute, like cars, a CPM is chews per mouthful. Research shows that when people chew about 15 times, they are going to eat less naturally than somebody who eats quicker than that. So, hey, another question you can ask yourself, other than like the beautification of your fridge and am I reading food labels with the 6-point system and, am I honoring my wild child and my inner health nut? You could also ask yourself, hey, do I chew 15 times per mouthful? See how close you can get. It, again, is such an important tool when it comes to how we eat and our experience of eating. Is are you actually facilitating digestion and chewing your food? Simple stuff, but so powerful. The final thoughts I have here is a pretty interesting number: 226. 226. That is how many food decisions you make in one day. Come on. I mean, you think it's hard? That's why you're trying to do 226 food decisions a day. That means you're making over 1,500 food decisions a week. So if you feel tired by the end of all of this, I mean, it's because you really are thinking and making these food decisions on a regular basis. So I encourage you to think about not only the logic of, what is the best thing to do and what do the books say, but to also put in some emotion around these decisions. And what I mean by that is to do an internal check-in of saying, how is this food going to make me feel? I mean, that is just something we have lost touch with. We measure things, we calculate things, we read books, and we eat according to a plan. We do everything. We sort of disconnect with ourselves. I don't know if I'm doing okay. Let me get on the scale and I'll let you know. I mean, we've lost this sort of touch with, hey, how do I feel? Does this food make me feel bad about myself? Does this make me feel good? Does this make me feel energized? What does this make me feel? So when it comes to logic, yeah, make some food decisions with that, of course, but don't forget to tap into sort of that that forgotten feeling of like, how do I feel with this food? And sort of my last couple of things that I want to leave you with are some powerful behavior change, because I can talk to you all day about planning. I can talk to you all day about shopping, and I can talk to you all day about eating and all of these tips. But in the end of the day, people get very frustrated with themselves because they know all of this stuff, but they can't seem to put it into action. And so one of the things that I would consider thinking, and I invite you to consider to think about, is every behavior that you do is a series of links, like the chain that you see in this presentation. So I walk in the back door, I go into the fridge, I grab whatever I see first, some like leftovers, I start eating it out of the fridge, I go to the couch, I'm like, oh, maybe it's time for dinner, I go, and all of a sudden, it's all of these things start just weaving themselves into an autopilot situation. That it's so powerful because habits start linking together that it's almost impossible to make a change in behavior unless you start breaking the chain. And what that means is going in a different door when you walk in that night. Instead of going to the fridge running and getting your fuzzy, fuzzy slippers, which I'm actually wearing right now. Or it means getting changed and feeling more relaxed and having like maybe a spritzer or some club soda that's flavored to try and make you feel different instead of just going through this autopilot. Instead of eating at the couch, eating at a table. Instead of watching commercials and then walking into the kitchen and getting a snack, instead going up and doing something upstairs like brushing your teeth. Any change of location, any change of behavior, anything tiny, going in a different door can help you not be in this autopilot mode and help snap you out and into better behaviors. And then the final thing that I think we can all agree on is weight loss, it's a behavior. It's not a number. So as many times as you catch yourself just focusing on weight loss as a number, what is it on the scale, is to rechannel that and focus more on, hey, what are the behaviors that I can do to make me feel good and healthy and alive? Because the more you focus on behaviors and the less you focus on numbers, the more powerful and the more pleasant the experience of getting healthy, losing weight, and keeping it off can be. Behavior focus, because you have 100% of control of behaviors, and you don't have that over numbers. And so that really concludes this idea of planning shopping and eating strategies that are quick, down and dirty insider tips to get you from thinking, oh, this is such a boring topic, to really thinking about this as something about treat yourself. Treating yourself well by planning, shopping, and eating right really can make you feel bright and magical and healthy. And so thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and I think we're going to open it up to Q&A.
Thank you very much, Dawn. That was an excellent, excellent presentation tonight. We do have a lot of questions. These are by far the most questions that we've had for any webinar that we've done. Our first
That's either a very good thing or a very bad thing.
It's a very good thing, and we'll be going. We'll be actually going to both Pam and Dawn when we ask these questions, and we'll go ahead and put you guys up on screen so everybody can see you as well. Our first question tonight. This is for you, Dawn. Do you feel like there is enough advertising for healthy eating and health promotion and access to resources for health promotion?
Well, I do feel like we are making a major turn for being healthy. I mean, I have seen more like billboards about health, and I've seen more talk about kale, in the last 3 years than I really ever. I've been a dietitian for a little over 15 years. So I do think that we're making strides in the right direction. But more importantly, what I think is cool is this idea that we have so much information. In fact, I think too much information and just not enough action. So that's why my presentation today is really less about, looking around and saying, like, what are all the things I can do, and then there's a million, and then you're paralyzed, and rather saying, hey, you know what, let me take a step back, and let me do one small thing, and start the momentum of change. So, I really think that, we're like information overload, and it's almost like take a step back and less is more.
Excellent. Now, the next question I'll direct to you, Pam, as I know you work in the bariatric surgery field, but Dawn, please feel free to chime in as well. Pam, this question, I'm a bariatric surgery patient, and I'm trying to find an artificial sweetener. Is there one that you recommend specifically?
Well, we in general recommend Splenda for patients within our program. I know that we actually would prefer that you minimize artificial sweeteners as much as possible and try and go with just plain water. I know that's one of those things that kind of shocks a lot of people. Their taste buds have been used to something much sweeter. Dawn, I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts on it, because there's so many new artificial sweeteners out there now with you see stevia, and I mean, there's just so many things I can't even think the list of.
Yeah, well, you know what? So here's the thing with artificial sweeteners, right? We know that the ones on the market, our government has said are safe. So it's not a safety issue when it comes to these artificial sweeteners as much as it is what I call a hyper sweet tooth. I have absolutely seen when people have everything that's artificial sweetened, from yogurts to candies to popsicles to ice cream treats to all of these, and then they put like 5 Splendas in their coffee every time they have it, or tea. They soon lose the ability to enjoy a strawberry, to enjoy the natural sweetness of an apple. And so I have really found that, your advice, Pam, of sort of pulling back a bit of artificial sweeteners to enjoy more of the natural sugars of the world, I think is very helpful. When it comes to, sweeteners, I think personal preference is really best. So, pulling back is step one. And then number two, like things like Splenda or Truvia, which is like the stevia, the sort of, mass-marketed stevia. There's like stevia drops in the store. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of them. So personal preference, but limit quantity.
Excellent. Okay, our next question. I have very limited resources for grocery shopping and am not very creative when planning meals. Do you have any suggestions about where I can find resources for inexpensive, nutritious, low-sugar meals?
Yeah, you know what? I actually think a lot of magazines these days are doing a great, and magazines at, the library even, like All You magazine is one that I know always has like a recipe and how much it costs per serving. So it'll always say, like, here's the recipe, and it's like 50 cents per serving. So, I think magazines are doing a good job these days of giving us cost per serving, especially ones like All You magazine. But even the government, where it's myplate.org, they have a lot of reasonable menu planning tools that do take price, like the general population's, bottom line into thought. So you could also use their website.
And James, I would also recommend several of the articles that we have online on the OAC website from the Your Weight Matters magazine. There's a lot of really good recipes on there as well.
Excellent. Our next question, this is a good one. The yogurt case is overwhelming. I've tried to focus on just Greek yogurt, but there are still so many options, it's overwhelming. Which one should I choose?
Yeah, isn't it though? I mean, that's where choice paralyzes you, baby, right? So I would say the first thing, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it, it's I want plain. I don't want vanilla, I don't want flavors, I want plain flavored yogurt. and that you add your own fruit too. And I do like the Greek trend because it is more protein. So I like Greek plain yogurt, and really of all the brands, they end up being pretty similar of the plain version.
Excellent. Our next question. I'm just not hungry in the mornings. Is it better to make myself eat or just drink a shake?
Okay, I gotta answer this. People are not hungry in the morning because they eat too much in the evening. And this, I have seen it for myself, okay? Dinner would be my largest meal. I'd wake up and think, why does everyone think breakfast is such a great meal? I don't even feel like eating it. Well, once I started really eating table plate share, 15 chews per mouthful, and really thinking about cutting back portions in the evening using a smaller plate, all those tricks, I'll tell you what, I'm starving in the morning. And so I call it reset your appetite clock. Consider in the evening time halving what you normally would eat at dinner, and see if you don't the absolute next day wake up starving. And that's a good sign. It means you're eating more in the morning and less in the evening.
Excellent. Our next question. I know what healthy portion sizes look like, but I'm still hungry after eating those small amounts. Is there a way to be full and lose weight?
Oh my gosh. And that's, what? That's a great question, because one of the main reasons why people will fall off of a diet plan is hunger. So for you to sort of nip that in the bud is a great idea. And my trick to all of this is two things, really. One is the visual. It isn't an old wives' tale that this, small plate thing works. You actually do take visual snapshots of your food, and if it looks like your food is overflowing from the plate, you will physically actually feel full faster. So it's your mind body really do have a connection. But the second thing is I'm all for abusing vegetables. Abuse of vegetables. You can quote me and you can sue me for it if you'd like, but the idea is vegetables have just 20 calories per serving. They're loaded with nutrition, and they're loaded with fiber and water, which are two very filling components of our food. So, for example, instead of just trying to eat this little baby portion of pasta and a tiny little bit of turkey meatball, you could have an entire spaghetti squash in there and really load up the volume on something that has low calories and high nutrition to make you feel full but just not get as many calories. So I have tricks like I do cauliflower mashed potatoes, so you make my mashed potatoes like bigger but fewer calories. I do like parsnip fries. I do lots of zucchini or spaghetti squash in my pasta. All those little tricks to get more veggies in. Genius.
All right, we're going to end it. I know we're going a little bit over tonight, but we want to end it on a good question here. I think it's a simple one. A lot of folks are always wondering, what are some good foods to keep around for snacks?
All right, so I have a snack equation. It's produce plus protein. Produce plus protein. So I like to combine those two things. So like an apple and almonds. And why I say that is because the produce actually adds volume to get you full, and the protein keeps you full. So they do two separate things, get you full, keep you full. Together they can bridge 2 meals for about 2 hours or so. So that's the point of a snack, is to bridge 2 meals, produce and protein. Apple and almonds would be an example, celery and peanut butter, cucumber and hummus, what else? I'm thinking of what I eat all the time. Oh, I love roasted edamame. Do you eat those roasted edamame in like a pear? Oh, delicious. Or like a string cheese and some grape tomatoes is like, sort of Italian. So all of those sort of combos, beef jerky and a piece of watermelon, think about those types of things to have around, and you really will feel more satisfied with your snacks.
All right, thank you very much.
Wait, I had one more thing. And when it comes to snacks, I like to have the 150 calorie mark as sort of my benchmark. I think that's a good amount to bridge one meal to the next.
Excellent, thank you very much. Pam, anything you'd like to add to tonight's webinar?
No, I'm fixing to do a refrigerator beautification project this weekend. Wow.
Woo!
I'm motivated.
Well, as Dawn said throughout the presentation tonight, remember to treat yourself. And I suggest that you treat yourself to the rest of the webinar series, which are available on the OAC's YouTube channel. So if you go to the OAC's YouTube right now, you can find all of the webinars that appeared throughout the month of October. We want to thank all of you for joining us throughout the month of October. We greatly appreciate your time in the evenings. If you have any questions that didn't get answered tonight, please send them to info@obesityaction.org. Once again, we thank you all. Have a good night.